Hello, everyone. My name is Joe Hillary, and I'm an analyst here at Eckerson Group. It is my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar on becoming a data-driven organization. We're thrilled so many of you were able to join us for this event.
Glad to be here with all of you out there and sharing what I've come to think of as a coming data divide. This is my hypothesis that by 2025, there will be a nearly unbridgeable chasm between data laggards and data elites. You might be wondering, well, what is a laggard and what is elite and where do I fall? Well, a laggard is, as you see here, the company runs on spreadsheets and reports. Users generally distrust the data that's given to them. There are very few standard KPIs or master data in the company. There is absolute report sprawl and data silos. There's probably a self-service initiative that went awry, and people only trust the data that they create, not data that anyone else gives them. There's very little reuse or data sharing across departments or silos. And analysts spend most of their time finding and fixing data rather than analyzing, visualizing, and sharing it. IT is not seen as a strategic partner. It's really seen as a bottleneck and a cost center. And from the perspective of executives, they view data as an operational center that costs money. They keep feeding data money into it and hope some value comes out of it, but that's about all they can expect. So hopefully that doesn't describe your organization. Maybe sometime in the past, but not now. Now, what's a data elite? On the other hand, you can imagine they're the complete opposite. They run on data and increasingly algorithms. Users take an active role in governing the data. There are ample number of data stewards and data owners assigned to every domain with affiliated data administrators to help on the technical side. There are standard KPIs and master data, things that have been defined from the top down and adhered to throughout the enterprise. Reports are governed and the data in them, at least standardized reports. And there's a process for making changes to those that everyone adheres to. There's lots of collaboration and reuse, especially among the analyst and data science community. Instead of reinventing the wheel, they're actually looking to see what other people have built and see what parts and components of that they can reuse for their own analysis. And those analysts spend most of their time actually analyzing data. What a novelty. And IT is seen as a strategic partner and a facilitator of self-service. They no longer try to do it all and build everything. They now help you out in the business empower yourself to create your own reports in a standardized way. And executives generally view data as a strategic opportunity to reduce costs, if not augment their sales process, and perhaps even make money by selling the data or an analytics service. So if you're a data laggard or somewhere in between, you might be wondering, well, how do I cross this chasm before it becomes completely untenable to get over it and to jump from one to the other? And that is something that we deal with here at Eckerson Group day in, day out on the research side, as well as in our consulting organizations, where we are helping companies figure out how to move the needle and go from laggards to elites, or somewhere close to it in any case. And we came up with this little formula, P to the fourth plus D equals V, and that's how we get people to cross that chasm. So I've been in this industry for a long time now, started covering data warehousing and business intelligence back in the early 1990s, and I've seen three major waves happen in this space. The first wave, and they're all 15 years. The first wave was business intelligence from the 1990s to about 2005. And that was where a lot of what we did in the data and analytics space was driven by IT. Around 2005, we started seeing the first rumblings of self-service intelligence, where users drive the creation of reports and data sets to service their own needs without IT assistance. And now we're on the cusp of the final era of artificial intelligence, where we're using models to drive our business. Things have changed. Our focus has moved from the past to the present to the future. Our actions using data have gone from being reactive to things that have happened to being proactive to, in fact, with AI, being able to automate our decisions in some cases. And the impact has gone from neutral at best to positive with self-service, where we're more agile and nimble and generating insights for business gain, to absolutely game-changing. I hope to prove that in this presentation. One thing that you'll notice here is that these eras are not independent or self-contained. They actually build on each other. And that's really important. Business intelligence really is a foundation for everything else you do. And I find that every organization, no matter how advanced, still needs to work on improving their delivery of business intelligence and self-service intelligence as they migrate to a model-driven world. Now, there are keys to succeeding in each of these eras, and I'll put these up here. I've limited these to 4 key factors in each of these eras. I think they hold up pretty well, but I'd love to hear what you all think. And you can read through these here. It would be a whole presentation really to go through each of these, what I would call success factors. But in the BI space, where I think still a lot of people are struggling and where we do a lot of our consulting work, how do we get enterprise data repository that houses our shared standardized data? How do we integrate data from multiple sources? How do we ensure that quality of data is good enough for analysis and fit for purpose? How do we create standard metrics that we can measure business performance for the enterprise as well as every department? How do we represent those metrics inside reports or dashboards? So those are, tall orders to achieve. And in the self-service, we double down. We have to improve our governance, not only of data, but reports. Our federated center of excellence means that now that we've got people out in the field doing data and analytics, we need to align them and make sure everyone's headed in the same direction, using the same standardized data. We need a bigger data repository, not just a warehouse, but probably a lake. It may be centralized, it may be distributed. It may consist of multiple zones of data processing and access. And then we need a self-service workbench, which is a set of tools to enable self-service analysis and reporting. And I think all those are starting to converge into a workbench. And then finally, in the third era, we need a data science program with data scientists and a data science leader. We're now analyzing large volumes of machine data, social media data, often is streaming in off of machines or logs or servers. We have lots and lots of data pipelines, so that means we need some kind of method to automate those and develop those quickly with great accuracy so that we can scale up our enterprise. So that's what data ops is all about. And we need to instruct people on how to read the output, statistical output, numeric output, visual output, and that's what data literacy is about. So those are the challenges that I see organizations face in each of these eras. Now, digital transformation has been in the air. Every executive, those words kind of spill off their lips very easily. But when they say that, you get a sense that they're scared. And what they're really saying is, we don't really want to be disrupted by digital natives, of which there are hundreds, if not thousands these days. But what they really need, other than a digital transformation strategy, is a data strategy, because you can't go digital without good data. Digital is based on data. And so we need to get our data house in order and evolve through those 3 eras that I just mentioned if we're going to truly transform our organization's digital players. So just for an example, these are some of the more well-known digital disruptors whose business runs on data and runs digitally. Last I looked, they had almost a $3 trillion combined market cap. And that's amazing, since most of these organizations didn't exist 20 years ago. What are they doing? Well, I think there's a couple of things. And these are all mostly consumer players. They're providing one-touch access to everything. For Google, it's information. Amazon, it's any product you want. Facebook, it's any connection in the world. Netflix, it's any movie, and so on and so forth. Really easy access to a huge inventory of whatever it is you're looking for. And they know your name, and they're glad you came. So very personalized service. They know what you've bought and what you might like based on what you've bought. And building on that, they have a built-in community of people who can help guide you in using this service, and provide reviews in the case of Amazon, for instance. In Facebook, it's all about community. But perhaps most for consumers, these services come free or at extremely low cost. And perhaps most important of all, it's extremely easy to do a transaction. In fact, people call these platforms the ability to deliver frictionless transactions. And making that happen in a digital world takes a lot of time, talent, and investment, and a lot of data. So these digital upstarts who are disrupting every industry out there, they're really focused on delivering an exquisite customer experience through their digital channels. And really what they've done is use data and digital to master convenience, choice, cost, and community. So whatever industry you're in, look for these digital upstarts. They're all taking a roadmap from these 5 or 6 vendors up here, especially Amazon, right? And copying their business model to try and disrupt the industry and perhaps displace your organization. So let me give you an example of one. In the insurance industry, there's one of the more interesting and well-known upstarts of among probably 1,000 that are out there is called Lemonade. And it's completely AI-driven process. They have these AI bots to buy the insurance, and AI bots, in this case AI Jim, to submit and process a claim. So these are some screenshots. Of course, it's all done via your mobile phone, right? So you can submit a claim by just typing words into the screen. They've got some keyword assists. That's all driven by natural language processing that guides the conversation. They present a pledge of honesty when you finally submit your claim to swear that you'll be honest. And that's to emphasize that you're part of a community. And in fact, Lemonade is actually a very old business model. It's a mutual insurance company where all the participants are members who share the profits. But in Lemonade's case, they don't hand out profits to the members. They make donations to charity, which is something that their target customer, which are millennial urban renters, really do value. So again, it's emphasizing the community aspect of this. And then finally, most importantly from our purposes, in the background, they're running 14 fraud models while the person is on the phone submitting the claim in the background. And they pay 50% of claims automatically and 25% of claims in 3 seconds or less. Now, that's pretty impressive, but even more so, I read that Lemonade updates its algorithms on average 8 times daily for all aspects of how it does business, from pricing, claims, coverage, service, etc. And this is a hallmark of these digital upstarts that understand how to create data pipelines to feed their analytical models and keep those pipelines and models up to date. So their whole premise is the more data we have about an individual, a target customer or prospect, the less risk we will take on. And for an insurance company, reducing your risk is the name of the game. So their goal is to get a policy of one, so micro pools. They put every customer in the pool and they assign a risk factor to that pool. So the more data they have, the more they can achieve that goal of a policy of one. Now, most insurance companies collect about 20 to 40 fields on their prospective clients. But Lemonade collects 2,000 to 4,000 data points on each customer, pulling data from everywhere it can to assess a customer's risk. So that gives it a huge advantage. And combined with its digital capabilities and data automation, allows it to deliver faster quotes, lower prices, faster claims, and happier customers. And I will say, I tried Lemonade. I'm not their target customer, and their prices actually were higher for me compared to my existing home insurance. But I will say the experience was completely delightful, and that's the whole point. I really wanted to be a customer because it was completely transparent. I knew exactly what I was getting. If I wanted to change things, it was immediate. So here's an example of a digital upstart taking a page from Amazon and other leading consumer providers and bringing this to other industries, perhaps an industry near you. So Eric Colson, he's the Chief Algorithms Officer at Stitch Fix. He formerly held that position at Netflix. Stitch Fix is kind of a Netflix spinoff focused on delivering apparel online using a Netflix model. So Eric is one of the guys who helps these, digital upstarts use data and algorithms profitably to run their businesses. And I won't go through his quotes here, but his answer when I asked him, can an older company join the data elite? He basically hems and haws and says, not really. Now, at Eckerson Group, we work with older companies who've got legacy systems and business processes and operational applications. And those do make things harder to advance in the digital data world. But my perspective is it can be done, but it does take a bona fide commitment from top executives, an enterprise commitment to governing data, strong technical know-how and infrastructure, an effective partnership between business and IT, not the polarized version we have in many companies, and a complete cultural makeover. So the company has an analytics culture. So you might ask, what does an analytics culture look like? Well, I think it's got 4 major dimensions. This is kind of the sniff test or the litmus test. So you can look at the executives and get a good sense of whether the company has an analytics culture. First and foremost, is there a commitment from the very top, especially the CEO or president, to data? And that can usually be recognized by them having given a mandate to treat data as a valuable asset, as valuable as people, as cash, or buildings, or any other major asset that that organization has. If there's that commitment at the top, then it's likely that will trickle down to the rest of the organization. Secondly, how do executives make decisions? Are they making decisions totally on gut feel and intuition, or are they using data to validate their intuition, and intuition to validate the data? There's a balance there. So how do executives make decisions? If they're making it with data and require people who are presenting plans to them to bring the data, we trust in God, all others bring data, then that's also a good sign. And finally, with executive example, are executives adhering to their own standards? If an organization has standardized on KPIs and reports, are the executives actually using those? Or are they using spread marks hand-delivered by their chosen analyst of choice, right? So are they not only talking the talk, but are they walking the walk? So it all starts at the top and trickles down. All right, what's another sign? Well, look to the knowledge workers, the people in the trenches. How are they behaving? How are they acting? And we know from companies with an analytics culture that every individual, every knowledge worker takes responsibility for data. In a sense, they take responsibility for governing it. Now, there are probably also an army of data stewards whose job, either full-time or part-time, is to make sure the data means what it's supposed to mean and it's accurate. There are data owners for every domain who are accountable for the quality and meaning of that data. And there are data administrators, technical folks who help data stewards make corrections and changes as need be. So governance is everyone's job in an analytics culture. Also, are these knowledge workers empowered both with knowledge about how to go get data, how to create reports, and then how to interpret that data and take action? And are they empowered with tools to do all those things? That self-service workbench I mentioned earlier, especially in the data analyst community. And finally, are people literate about data? Do they have basic skills in numeracy? Do they understand statistics at a basic level? Do they understand how to analyze and interpret charts? Do they understand how to recognize bias in those charts or skew? Some basic things that every data worker really needs to work with information properly. So there's usually a curriculum at these organizations that teaches rank and file workers how to do these things. Now, we can look sideways too, out to business units and look to see how they're acting on data, working with data, and interacting with others based on that data. First and foremost, is there a cross-functional group of representatives from each department who form an analytics council that essentially serves as the board of directors for the enterprise data analytics program for the whole company. Every company needs a board of directors for data, and that's what we call an analytics council. And there's usually two parts to that council. There's usually an executive committee that does funding, and then there's the working committee that does the real work of refining all kinds of things, marketing programs, training programs, standards for report governance, standards for data. They are the ones who first review a data strategy presented by the data team, and they sign off on that. So having that board of directors for data is really important, I have found. This council takes an avid interest in data and report governance, because usually that's the pain they feel most, that everyone's working with different definitions of metrics and dimensions and master data, and everyone's using slightly different versions of reports with different definitions of those things. So getting your data and reports aligned is a huge task for the council or a subcommittee of it. And then finally, a community of interest where people around the organization collaborate instead of burrowing down into their silos. They collaborate on a regular basis, formally and informally, to share tips, tricks, and techniques about how to do self-service analytics or machine learning, or just to create a report or interpret a report or find the right one for them, use a data catalog. So all these things can be facilitated from the top, but also hopefully spawned and supported by a cross-functional group of people in the business units. And then finally, the data team, the corporate or enterprise group of people who are responsible for creating the shared enterprise data, they have a huge role to play. They obviously used to do everything, but now their job really is to manage that data and pull it all together, either centrally or in a distributed way, so people can access that to do analysis and create reports. So managing the technology infrastructure is really important, and creating zones of access, very important. You probably have a data warehouse and a data lake and who knows what else to support that, virtualization tool perhaps. But just as important as the technical infrastructure is the organizational architecture. I call this the center of excellence or your data analytics program. And this is where you proliferate best practices throughout the organization, where the corporate team sets some standards endorsed and approved by the Analytics Council that all the departments then adhere to, that align those units with the corporate direction as well as with each other. Creating that center of excellence and aligning all the factions in the organization so they're marching in the same direction is tricky and challenging, but it's really fun when it works. And finally, the IT or data team still has a lot of work to do. Oftentimes, they're the ones building not only the data repositories, but the pipelines to feed machine learning models, for instance, or feed standardized enterprise reports. And they may have hundreds of these pipelines. And to scale up that development effort and deliver things faster, better, cheaper, well, that's a tall order. We've done a lot of work in mastering agile analytics. But now the next wave really is data ops and helping to automate these pipelines, apply testing all along the way, not only in development, but in testing and production, and monitoring what we're doing so that we proactively can identify issues and correct them before the customers actually see them. We don't want customers, testing our software and finding bugs. So those are signs of an analytics culture. Hopefully that will help you understand where you stand in this spectrum. So I mentioned at the outset this little formula for success, P to the fourth plus D equals V. Well, this is our value chain model at Eckerson Group. This is what we use as a methodology to help companies advance through those three areas of intelligence. You can see here there's a business environment that consists of business processes, business applications, and a business culture. That's a huge input into the data environment, which consists of the people, program, platform, and processes surrounding your data. If you master each of those things, and those are core capabilities that we evaluate as consultants, when we work with clients, then you can generate lots of business value. And that value typically is generated through re-engineered processes that now become data-driven, as well as perhaps new business models, business innovation that can help the company improve its top line or bottom line. So this formula for success is, the right program, right people, right processes, right platform, right data creates large business value.
Alrighty, well, I think that just about wraps up our time. So thank you again for joining us today, and I hope you learned something that you can take away back to your organizations.